All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Debbie and Dan with Action-Based Leaders. Super excited. Back for another show. This is chapter 5 of If Your Team Sucks, Find Out Why. And today we're talking about building trust in communication. Debbie, welcome back. Great to see you.
Yes, great to see you. I always like talking about communication.
This is definitely one of those hot buttons. And as we've seen in many different trainings, this is always one of those things that when there's an ineffective leader, communication always ends up on that list, always ends up on that board. And this is one of those things that it just happens, right?
Yeah.
Communications either is happening or isn't.
Well, it's perceptual because I always communicate well. Don't you, Dan?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm a good communicator on my island.
In my head, yes. I've always loved that, right? So I've got to be the mind reader for a couple of different people just so that we keep the communication going.
Yes. Listen to what I mean, not what I say.
Right. Can't you tell what I'm thinking? Don't you?
I know you should.
It would be so much easier.
And welcome to the world of communication. That's why we love it so much. So yes, building trust and communication to me is so important. Years ago, there was a book that I read by Susan Scott, Fierce Conversations. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
yeah.
Out of that, she has this whole entire concept that I have just literally embraced, and we've even expanded at Cultural Alignment Solutions. But success happens one conversation at a time. Mm-hmm. The way that I like to expand that is, if that's how success happens, how does failure happen, do you think?
One conversation at a time.
Exactly. Success or failure happens one conversation at a time.
Can it be the lack of conversation?
Absolutely, but you're still communicating.
Yeah, I guess the lack of communication is still a communication.
Right. Inaction is still an action.
Inaction.
Yeah. And that's when you really start understanding the nuances of communication, is when it gets powerful. So a lot of clients, a lot of leaders that I have worked with, they're like, my team doesn't communicate. They're not effective communicators. And all we get the joy of doing is going, if you're not seeing it, then you're not doing it. You're not promoting it. And again, if your team sucks. So some people struggle with that. If your team is struggling with communication, find out why. And 9 times out of 10, in your head, you are a good communicator. I hear over and over and over, I do try to do that with my team. I do try to build trust. I do try to build good communication. Dan, there's one saying that you have said over and over and over, and it makes sense. You are going to get sick of your message before they even get it.
And it's funny because yes, I say that all the time, especially in corporate settings and business settings, in being able to translate in getting your vision, your mission, your voice out there. Yes, you're going to say your stuff over and over again. And I was just thinking, it's the same as a parent too. I mean, trying to get those lessons across to your kids it's the same thing. You say this over and over and over again, and your kids still don't get it. And it's no different than why would your employees be any different, other than, yes, they should be adults and that kind of stuff. But yes, over communicating, whatever it is going to be most annoying to the person doing it, but is super necessary to those that need to hear it.
Absolutely. And our brain only can process so much information at a time. So for us, the speaker or the communicator, we think they're not listening, when in reality, we actually do not know what they're processing at that time.
I think that's so awesome. Right? And I remember when we were doing training together, and you hand out all these fidget spinners and all this other stuff. And I remember one specific person who fidgeted for 8 hours. So 2 4-hour sessions. So 4 hours straight, another 4 hours. And I just remember, man, like, is this guy even paying attention? And he came out with some of the coolest takeaways from it.
Yeah.
Right. To your
well,
point,
you even laughed when I was passing the fidgets out. You're like, what are you doing? And I said, these are brain breaks. Everybody was like, fidgets. Yeah. because a lot of times that is how they're processing the information. And so therefore, there's even people that see dot to dots, right? This goes back to basic four quad, disc, for instance. All right. So there's all types of behavioral style studies out there, but let's just go to basic disc because it's super simple. A behavioral style literally sees S behavioral style dot to dot to dot. So if you've not connected the dots, boom, they're done listening because they're over here trying to connect the dots to hear what it is you have to say. So there's so many facets to communication, so many ways to say it. Some people just need bullet points. Some people need the thesis. Some people, need it in written down. Some people need it, auditory, right? Kinesthetic, whatever. There's so many facets, and communication you as a leader of a team. If you are not seeing solid communication, just realize there's yet again another way you can communicate it, period.
And I think that's what's so crazy about it. And I think that's what makes this so challenging is the communication pieces. There's so many books, so many stories, so many, you have to communicate this way because this is what works. Communicate with bullets. Don't have a blank slide. Over communicate, have paragraphs so that those can read it. Have it in tactile form so that the kinesthetic readers can get it. Have it in audio, in visual, and everybody gets overwhelmed with it. But I love what you say around the whole leading by example and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And how you demonstrate it so that you are the message in everything that you do.
There are 3 things that are non-negotiables when it comes to communicating. Truly, and when I say non-negotiables, you're going to have them all the time in your back pocket, always using. And one is lead by example. We talked about that on the last podcast. Mm-hmm. It's leading by example because you are the message. It's not stating the message. So you are the message. Because you are the message, that's going to actually cause your communication to be more fluid because you're always going to be communicating it in everything that you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I really like is you have to exude it. You have to own it. You have to be it.
Absolutely. And then once you're that, then you can promote open communication. Here is a huge point about communication is when you promote communication, you are promoting an environment that is actually creating communication. You're not telling, you're asking.
You're asking, yeah.
You're empowering because you want to find out what perspective do they have. Right? Not just tell. And maybe that's something we need to expand. Effective communication is not sitting there telling and saying they're not doing what I'm saying. There's no buy-in then. Make sense?
But I think that was interesting. That was actually one of the things that came out of one of the leaders that I remember talking about, hey, we've got to say this message 100 times in order for people to get it, was really that you also need to have them reflect it back.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool.
And it's getting real creative for how you're seeing them reflect it back, right? You might even ask a question, pose it out there. If you have a group meeting or one-on-ones or whatever it is, and say you have a value of, I don't know, name a value.
What everybody uses, trust and integrity and honesty.
Okay, yeah. So you have, a value of trust and integrity. You could actually start making it an activity, right? Going, all right, trust and activity. Who's going to report what you do, this month or this week, this quarter, whatever. You're driving it in through them communicating back, but getting validated for the actual actions that they're doing.
Yeah.
Is that making sense?
That's huge.
It's huge because you're not doing the telling. Now you're putting it on them and validating them, right?
Well, and that's where most people learn best is when they teach something.
Yeah. Yeah. I have one leader that I work with, and I absolutely love going on site with all of their meetings. There's one time we'll be together. If they bring all of their leaders in, there could be up to 300 people in the room. So it's a large organization.
Yeah.
Never have I been in a meeting with this CEO that he does not start with values reports. And he literally, the whole first 30, 45 minutes, now he will ask certain people, hey, you get this value, you get this value, you get this value, share a story. But he's doing so much more in that. Can you imagine the CEO calling you, Dan, a month and a half before a meeting saying, hey, do you want to do, innovation at the meeting? Because they all know now. So guess what that person's going to be doing? They're going to be looking for innovation, right, within their team. So talk about and that's my last non-negotiable, is transparency. He's creating transparency around the pieces of communication that is just priceless. It's priceless.
It is, and it truly, it infuses it and really solidifies it or ingrains it in the minds of those that are in the company, right? That's where the culture really gets solid. Because that foundation of, hey, the the CEO is going to call on me one day to say, all right, core values, you have this value. Please provide a story that exemplifies that. You better show up to that quarterly or that annual, whatever it is, with a great story, because that's truly what's going to continue that going.
Yep. And it's also fostered in their culture, natural share, right? So they're naturally sharing, hey, I had this happen, at my location. Hey, we had this happen. Because I'm sorry, everybody's ego in there wants to be the one picked to share, right, at the next meeting. Yeah. So they're all wanting to share. But do you see how this is driving from more of an anabolic side of energy, not the negative side, right? So more of that positive side of energy of people looking for things to share. And that's where it gets just really powerful. That's effective communication. That's bringing the language into the organization. And I think that's it's very valuable, especially if you tend to be a communicator that's more introvert and more quiet. It doesn't mean that you communicate bad. It might not be the type of communication that your team needs. And that's where that adapting and adaptability has to come into play.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Now, all right, I'm looking at the book, and we come to this leader challenge.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this one, particularly in this chapter. Talk to me about what it is and why right now.
Yes. So each chapter I put in there like a leader challenge, right? So as you're reading it, it's a practice and ponder, a way that you can go inside, because I believe leadership is from the inside out. It's not outside in, right? When you lead from who you are, that's when you're going to see the biggest impact on your team. So this leadership challenge, the reason why I put it in there, because I see this a lot. You actually saw it in one of the last trainings we just did. So you know how you put your big old stickies up all over the room, and it says, all right, on one side, list all the characteristics of, your most favorite leader that you ever worked for. What made them your favorite? And then on the other side, they list, one that, let's just say, wasn't their favorite, right? That was more challenging. And I told you before, I said, always, 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 in all of the years that I've done this, you're going to have a topic on either side. What was it? Communication.
Oh,
right.
What we're talking about. Yep.
Yes. An effective leader communicates effectively. The leader that actually wasn't their favorite didn't communicate good. Always will come up. So the leadership challenge is actually based out of this, because with that exercise, what I want people to do is they step back and they look. And at this point, we're training leaders. Every leader always sees themselves as a good leader.
Sure.
It's the team's fault, or it's, there's always, they're the victim of something, right? Whatever it is, that's natural with what it is that we do and the work that we do. The awareness point that I want them to get to is you are not who you say that you are. You are who your team says that you are. You are who those around you say that you are, from a standpoint of how you're viewed by others, right? So if inside you don't want to be viewed like that, or maybe you do, what are those pieces that you can work on and develop? Are you with me as I'm explaining that? So what I want people to understand in this leadership challenge, the simple question is, if your team or those closest to you even were to rank you on effective communication, leading by example, allowing there to be open communication and transparency, how would they rate you? Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being excellent. Truly allow yourself to sit with that going, how would they rate me? And allow yourself to step out of your own and go to their perspective.
I love that, because it's not you rating yourself. You have to now be conscious of what other people are thinking about you.
Yeah. Yeah. And their experience of you. We don't know how it feels. I'm always looking at the world through my 2 sets of eyes. I don't know what the room felt like before I walked in. I don't know what you were experiencing before my energy became a mix in the room, right? Because I'm just walking around with my energy. And once we can realize that our energies literally shift a room, and get really transparent around that. Let there be feedback. And that's what open communication is for us at Cultural Alignment Solutions. It's, do we have reciprocal feedback? Are you able to come to me and really ask the questions that you want to ask? Do we get uncomfortable if things are off a little bit? Sure, we do. It's human nature. It's natural, but you have to have those communication pieces that aren't always comfortable, right?
It's a big piece of it. And, guarantee we'll go into that next in our next episode of Action-Based Leaders. Debbie, thank you so much. Make sure you do the leader challenge. Leave your comments down below in the comment section. Love to hear what you're thinking, what others might be thinking about you, or what ahas you have. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast player or at actionbasedleaders.com.